2:30 in the morning. Can I ask why for a second time tonight you are disturbing me and my son in my home?
Yeah, because I've been made aware there's videos that have been posted onto social media, including those that were made this morning.
This morning? What made this morning?
And of my officers that have been round this evening.
Right, and?
So I'm here to kindly ask that you remove said videos from social media. If you would do
No,
so,
I don't think I've broke the law, so I don't think I will.
And also, I want to advise you that you might well be committing offences under the Malicious Communications Act, okay?
I've never seen that video before. I've seen so many videos like that though, and they're all so surreal. It's like, what is happening? My friend Oliver Lane is here. He's the Breitbart News London editor. Oliver, I want to get to Le Pen and that whole situation, but let's start here with the regular old person. What is that video? What are those? What's the law? What's happening here?
Well, what you just said is exactly what I was going to say, what I was thinking I was going to open with as you were playing that clip, which is I have seen so many clips like this recently. They no longer almost surprise or shock, which is citizens taking the opportunity to record themselves being doorstepped by the police for saying naughty, hurtful words online, because, of course, we have a new and developing legal system in the UK where speech online is very heavily policed, very heavily regulated. And this extends out of the internet sphere, in fact, and this is something I'm sure we'll have time to talk about, which is the way the UK is also cracking down on freedom of conscience as well, particularly through prayer, people being literally arrested for that as well. It's a very concerning development.
Yeah. What's the justification for it? What's the philosophy behind it? And then if I can also ask you for what spirit is inside the people of London, like that woman right there who's like, no, I'm not going to take it down. How prevalent is that?
I've got to say I'm very impressed. It probably takes quite a lot of self-confidence to talk to a police officer that way, who's come to your doorstep at 2 a.m. to tell you maybe breaking these exciting and nebulous new laws. What's a justification for it? I don't think there really is a justification, but the philosophy behind it, the ideas, is subsuming individualism into a more socialized society where we give up our freedoms in return for the all-encompassing and cosseting embrace of the state. And of course, to make that system work, if people are stepping out of line, if they're not talking very nicely, well, then you have to haul them off to prison.
Is this a British idea? Is this an old British idea that's coming back, or are you stepping away from the norm?
Very much stepping away from the norm. You've hit the nail on the head. It's disgracefully un-British, and it's one of the key reasons I think that there's such an affinity, I hope still, between the American and the British people, is that we are ground zero for these very old-fashioned and twee ideas these days about liberty, personal liberty and freedom under the law. And this sort of papers, please state, if I can use such a phrase, it's very European. It's post-French Revolution. It is the militarized police of the German pre-unification states. These are things that are alien to our countries, but which are now creeping in through essentially internationalized politics, because that's, of course, a very leftist conceit, globalism, and it makes us all the same, and that's not such a good thing.
I was in my nation's capital not long ago, and in the archives building is the Magna Carta. It's right there. You can look at it, right next to our Declaration of Independence. And it's a beautiful thing and a beautiful connection between our countries.
It's held in more reverence in your country than it is in mine, which is a terrible indictment to the state of modern Britain.
What's the difference between the British idea and the European ideal? If you could speak more to that.
Are we talking about the ideal of freedom, what that means?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the best sort of example is to compare the United Kingdom and Germany, for instance, because Germany, probably out of necessity, let's be honest, after what happened in the early 20th century, has very strict laws on thought and expression and act, because it seems that we need to control the Germans. We've been through that game a few times already, haven't we? Fighting the Germans. But they have a system where, for very simple things, actually, insulting politicians, that's illegal in Germany. Spreading memes It's illegal in Germany. We have a story up on Breitbart London just this morning about the editor of a German news website, I think, who's just been sentenced to 7 months in prison and an enormous fine. I don't know exactly how much it is. The way they calculate fines in Germany is it's a percentage of your annual income. And I think they've asked him to surrender 60% of 1 year's income for him because he posted a meme of Germany's interior minister holding a sign, obviously photoshopped, reading in German, "I hate freedom of speech." And just to prove the point, categorically, she then sent the police to come and get this guy and to drag him through the courts. So the system they have in Germany is one that ensures social harmony by legislating it into existence. And it does this through these restrictive laws where if you step out of the bounds of what the government considers to be decent, you'll be hauled through the courts. And it was never like that in the United Kingdom because essentially as a nation, we could trust each other to be civil enough to have discourse, to disagree without feeling the need to report each other to the police. And like I say, that's changing. And there are some very dangerous, I think, outcomes from this. So obviously, in the case of this individual news editor, which is obviously something of interest to me because I'm a news editor and I don't want to go to prison, that's a terrible outcome for him. But for wider German society, you have, for instance, the emergence now of the Alternative für Deutschland, Alternative for Germany, this new right-wing populist, if you like, sovereigntist political party. They've been going for about 15 years now, and they are now practically, in fact, actually, the official opposition in Germany. Just today or yesterday, they are the biggest party in a German poll for the first time. They are the largest opposition party in the German parliament. And there are moves afoot and have been for about 2 years now to ban this party. They're already being spied on by what they call the Office for the Protection of the Constitution, which is Germany's political police. Again, a very alien concept to you and I, having something that is actually officially the political police, but that's how it's done in Europe. So they're being surveyed by the political police, the Office of the Protection of the Constitution, have been for several years, and all of this just seems so strange to us, doesn't it? This isn't the world we feel like we live in. Is this the Western world? But yeah, Germany's part of it. So that's the difference. Some of the key differences, I think, between where we are and where we want to be as English-speaking Westerners and where the dark places the Europeans can lead us to.
Yes. I want to pivot, although not that much of a pivot. We got about 4 minutes to Le Pen. What are the accusations against Le Pen in France?
So this is, and in 4 minutes, a very concerning but not entirely surprising development. She is being potentially sent to prison. This is Marine Le Pen, who is the front runner to be the next president of France. This is like top flight lawfare. You'll never find lawfare like this anywhere else in the Western world. And what she has done is she has committed the crime of existing as a MEP in the European Parliament. One of the objections that us Britons had to the European Union when we were in it is that it was what we called the gravy train. There's so much money sloshing around inside the European Union, inside the European Parliament, and there's almost like a miasma there. You can't be there and not be corrupted. So they have a system where there's a huge amount of money to fund political parties. If you don't take that cash, you're at a competitive disadvantage compared to the other parties, all of the other parties that do, because they all do. And sometimes it seems through accounting errors, which are so easy to make, or you think you're going to get away with because everybody else gets away with it, the money ends up in the wrong place. Now, the European Union never passes audits. This stuff is never checked. The only time the figures are run, it seems to me, is when it's a right-wing populist who has taken that cash. So the point made, and I have to emphasize this is something that's even admitted to by, say, left-wing and centrist commentators in Europe when they're looking at what's happened to Marine Le Pen in the past 2 weeks. They say, well, hang on, everybody does this. Why is it that just she is being picked up on this particular law and where this money goes? And because of it, because of this selective interpretation of justice, she may be banned altogether from political participation in France. As I say, lawfare at its worst.
One more specific question, then we'll go broader. How much of this do you put towards like accounting errors or mistakes or whatever versus like a malicious embezzlement of money that sure everyone else is doing, but I did a bad thing too, right? Where do you put it on that spectrum?
I think it's probably halfway between the two. I wouldn't say it's malicious, because when you're inside the European Union, the money's there for the taking, and I think there was probably, say, 10, 15 years ago, a certain cynical feeling among a lot of people that, well, we're going to miss out if we don't do it. I'm not excusing it personally. I like to think that in an alternate universe where I was an MEP, I would resist that temptation. But the fact is, everyone does it. There was some research we cited last week, which I think said that like a fifth of all members of the European Parliament are thought to possibly be guilty of this, but none of them are ever convicted, because it's like what's it called? A Mexican execution squad. Please excuse me if I've got that metaphor wrong. If one person blows the whistle, everybody gets their heads blown off, except when it's on the right, because you can pick them off.
Yep. Okay. What will be the political result of this in France and Europe? Will it be like Trump with the lawfare attempts here, where it just gained him in power and he got more support? Will it backfire?
Okay, so my money's for the former. Whether Le Pen is actually able to contest this election or not, at this point almost doesn't matter, because she's done something that I think very few charismatic political leaders actually achieve, because they're so invested in themselves, it's relatively rare. She has managed to groom a successor, Jordan Bardella, who's the head, I think, of the Le Pen's faction in the French Parliament. If she is, through this lawfare, prevented from standing whatsoever, he's a well-known character in France now. Look, we're going to be frank. He's a young guy. He's handsome. He's charismatic. He will take on the baton. He will run. And they'll have this, and I hate to use this phrase because it's essentially left-wing language, but they'll have this fantastic grievance narrative, which is, we have one election left to save France. If they could put Marine Le Pen in prison, they'll put you in prison too. So vote for us to save the country. And that's a very powerful thing to take to the ballot box, as you know very well in America with Trump.
Okay, last question overall. Do you see the weaponization of Western governments increasing against the people, or do you see the people rising up and ultimately winning?
But the only answer I can give to that is yes. We see both simultaneously. People are rising up precisely because the weaponization of governments against the people is increasing. And that's a great way of putting it. And it manifests itself in so many ways. But the key one, and this is the big base layer upon which everything else is built, is that if a democracy means anything, it is the sovereignty of the people. Because if your vote doesn't count for anything, because there's a deep state, and whatever politicians you put in place are undermined by the permanent government, say, in that sort of instance, your sovereignty, your personal sovereignty as a voter, is being undermined. And if you have that, you have nothing.
Oliver, what do you have in that cup of yours?
Why, it's fine English tea, of course, and it's the only thing keeping my voice going.
Next time we chat on the TV, I'll join you. We'll both be drinking English tea.
We'll arrange it.
America's finest, whatever version of that filth I can find at the grocery store. Oliver Lane, Breitbart News London editor, Breitbart.com for all of Oliver's latest. Good to talk to you, brother.
Thanks for having me on again.